Hey guys, welcome back to Final Sector. I'm Michael, as always, joined by Kyle. We're going to be discussing the upcoming race at Australia, which been
Woohoo!
3 long years, finally back to our hometown. So, which you're actually going to.
I was about to say back super home for me. I remember I was there the Thursday. Well, it was the Friday it was announced. I remember it being the Thursday in the city, and I remember talking to my dad about it on the phone, going, "I don't think it's gonna go ahead this weekend." We were kind of like, "Oh, you think?" And it was all over the news, and but that was ages ago now, and thankfully we're back in full swing and.
Yep.
Fully confident it's going to go forward. Yes!
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into it, I want to say a big welcome to those listening on Spotify. I think this will be our first actual video. Our first actual audio. Still getting used to it. Our first audio.
Full episode upload on Spotify.
Full episode going up on Spotify. So, welcome to anyone that's listening on Spotify. If you didn't know we're on Spotify, then we're on Spotify. We'll leave a link in the YouTube description if you want to listen on Spotify as well. But we'll get into it because there's a lot to talk about. Effectively, it's a new track at Australia, or there's a lot of changes at the very least. So the biggest one being that that turn 9-10 complex is no longer there, and now it's just a big long straight. So supposedly they're going to be adding another DRS there, which means there's going to be 4 DRS zones. That sounds
it would be
like a bit much, doesn't it? I'm kind of hoping maybe if they're going to add one there, they take away the one after the chicane.
The super chicane,
maybe?
yeah.
Because that one seems a little bit unnecessary if you're going to have...
I'm not sure. The super chicane, as I'm calling it, the move after into the bend after that, you still didn't see that many moves there. It was more so just to close them up for them the back straight. So maybe their argument is that they're saying, well, we're going to bring them closer anyway. But then as we've seen so far, these cars seem to be good at running closer, so maybe it will be overkill, but we'll just have to see.
We'll have to find
Better to
out,
have, I guess, a bit too much easy racing than no racing has been a bit of a criticism of Albert Park in the past.
Very true. They've widened or reprofiled a lot of the corners, notably T6, which is the one right before that new straight, where the expected speeds are apparently going from about 150 kph up to about 220. Maybe not with these cars because maybe I don't know. They're pretty good in high-speed corners, but either way,
it's still a significant difference.
Big jump. Yeah, so considering the corner before that, turn 5, they're already kind of flat out through that corner, and they're going to be more or less flat out through the next one, and then you got the big long straight, and then you got the fast chicane, and it's gonna be a bit scary, I think, all the way down there.
It will be. I'm curious if they'll those curbs they normally have there, which are attacked a bit. I'm curious if they'll lower them. Because not only are these new cars not as good at taking curbs, but they'll be taking so much more speed in, so they'll want to take even more curb because they can't turn as much. So, or if someone flings a move down the inside, you love to see that.
The entire track has been resurfaced. I guess that's pretty big. First time it's happened in 25 years. So, as we have seen with, was it Turkey when they resurfaced it, and they had a lot of issues. A lot of the teams had issues because the track was so new and didn't really respond the way they expected. So I'm curious to see if maybe similar things might happen. But we'll see. The pit lane's been widened, and they're expecting the pit lane speed to go from 60 to 80 kph. I think it's...
Yes, yep.
As far as I could tell, it was still pending FIA approval. I couldn't find anything definite. But hopefully that is the case, because that could bring different pit strategies, like pit stop strategies, into play. Being you lose less time in the pit stops with the higher average speed, or the higher minimum speed. So that could bring that into play as well. So hopefully they do approve that one. But pretty much all of this, it's predicted that it's going to be like 5 seconds a lap faster with these changes. So it's another high speed street track, as it turns out, from one high-speed street track to another. So,
technically, yes.
Yes,
feels more like, I've always felt I've labelled it as like a park track.
Yeah,
it's more like a park than a street.
Doesn't feel like a street track, does it? But
no, and you often get a bit of leaves and shade from the trees and everything, rather than skyscrapers and buildings and on bridges.
Yeah, very true. So. The only other notable things that I wanted to mention is the fact that Pirelli are bringing the C2, C3, and the C5 tyre. So they're completely skipping the C4 tyre, which, it's going to make for some, I think, interesting strategy choices potentially. I don't know if we'll see the C5 tyre during the race, but it does mean we'll get some, hopefully, pretty damn fast qualifying laps. So, and if they can hang on to the tires long enough through the lap as well, because I know that's been an issue for some drivers where they lose the tires after like 4 corners. So a lot of more high speed corners now, so they might be losing the tires pretty quickly.
Especially if they're thundering, as you say, they're thundering down most of that middle sector full beans. They want to brake as late as possible into that last complex. They've got to have the confidence that they're not going to lock up, or how many times have we seen cars lock up so far in on qualifying laps and George at the start of Bahrain. So
also it's also going to be a little bit cooler as well, because it's a little bit later in the year than it normally is. So it's actually like the climate's going to be a little bit cooler. So actually getting those
cool here,
getting those tires like up to temperature is going to be a lot harder. So they, maybe the C5 could be good in a race if it's like really, really cold, and the C2, is that going to be just like, are they just not going to be able to get any heat in the tires? I think it's going to be what teams and what drivers can get their tires into the right temperature window, I think might potentially play a really big part of this race. So especially with, the new surface, how the tires going to react. I was going to say
the new surface. They've got no data from previous years, and we've already seen the tires are acting so different at 2 tracks that are the same already. So those strategy for those races is out the window. We've got no idea for here, right, and how even the changes of the track will affect things too. So
very exciting. Last couple of things. Vettel's returning after missing the first 2 races from COVID. So finally we get Vettel back in what is potentially the worst car on the grid. Anyway, and Schumacher is fit to race as well, so I assume they have that car, ready to go for him as well. But yeah, he was.
I was going to say you'd less
it's less about him
on
being
Mick
fit.
And more on the car. They were car ready.
Is the car fit to race? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And final thing is Albon, as we talked about in the last video, Albon does have a 3-place grid penalty after the contact with Stroll. So wherever he finishes, he's probably going to start at the back, isn't he? Because if he gets 17th or higher, then he's probably done pretty well in that Williams. Let's be honest. So, so that's all the things to talk about. Obviously, I know you're going to the race. Is there anything in particular you're excited about looking at it from sort of a live perspective?
I don't know. I mean, I always like to go in the general weekend to see everything, not just the F1s. I mean, it's still a cool experience when you first see them out there, and, after watching it so much on the TV, physically seeing it is always a cool experience. I don't know, I'm just excited for the event. I've been looking forward to it since we, hoped that it was going to be a thing. I mean, it's doubly exciting for me because I actually haven't been on race day before. Normally I would stay home to watch it because given it's the opening race, I'm kind of like, I could see it from down there in a big crowd, but then I also want to be watching it as a fan from the start. But it's kind of the third race now, and it helps that I'm also going with a bunch of friends as well, rather than just by myself like normal. So just the event in as a whole, I'm just fun to go and experience it and everything.
One day I'll get down there and maybe next year I'll get down there and we can do one of these live. Fingers crossed. Maybe one day. But yeah, I guess we'll get into our predictions for the race. It's gonna be a tough one again because of the unknowns with this track. And I guess with the new cars as well, but we'll point out.
And with what we've seen so far, it's not like we've just seen Hamilton win 2 races, so we go, "Oh, it's all up in the air," but probably Hamilton. It's kind of like, regardless, even if we knew where we were going, or even if we were going to one of the 2 races we've been to again, it's like, I still don't know.
Yeah. So I guess the one thing we will mention really quickly is we've been sort of mentally keeping track of the points that we get, but we haven't actually set it on video at all. So the current standings are Kyle's got 1 out of 4 and I've got 0 out of 4. We're both shit. So let's get to our predictions. Who do we think is going to... By the way, play along at home. You'll probably, even if you've started 2 races late, you'll probably beat us by the end of the season.
By the end of this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you could get 1 right and you'll probably be better than me after this weekend. So, all good. So who do you think will get pole in the qualifying?
So I kind of already committed to my answer on this because as a part of another group we do have kind of like a little predictions league that we do. One of the questions for that is who would get pole, I believe. So I put on pole, I put Max. I believe partly because I just think he's, after maybe a bit of it being on the back step the first race. The second race he's really stepped his game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that on the straight still, even though the Red Bull power engine might be lacking slightly, I still think as an overall package on the straights is better. And I don't think there's as many areas where the Ferrari is going to have an advantage over the Red Bull than it has in the previous 2 circuits.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it'll be very close.
Yeah.
Or for all we know, we could see another Checo or a Sainz or something pop up there. But I'd moderately pretty easy Max for me, I think, for the qualifying.
Okay. I'm gonna go Charles. Solely because, you know how I mentioned the getting the tyres into the correct window with Max struggling with that in Saudi. I think the variable conditions maybe they're better in the cooler conditions as opposed to the hotter conditions in the Red Bull. I don't actually know. Considering we've only seen, Bahrain and Saudi, and both of them are quite a bit hotter than what Melbourne is going to be.
Hot races in the desert at night.
Yeah. But so maybe it is, they can get them into the window way easier when it's a bit cooler. But just after seeing Max struggle getting his tyres into the right window from Saudi on the qualifying lap,
good call.
It just seems like that Ferrari, they've got a little bit more wiggle room in terms of, or at least they can get into that window a lot easier.
Yes.
So I kind of do see, and considering how marginal it is between the Ferrari and the Red Bull at the moment, I do think Charles will probably pip him. But again, it's so the variables are so unknown. So
it is. There's so many. I mean, we could talk about the same things going into our race predictions too, and some of the reasons I've kind of gone with what I'm thinking for the race.
Yeah. So
do you want me to go ahead with it?
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, so race, again, some of those items you were saying, I think from a one-lap perspective, I think they'll have enough practice and kind of being able to gel everything together that's why my eggs are in Max's basket. But for the race, over a race distance, with a surface that could be completely random variable, that will probably still be quite, dirty.
Bit slippy, maybe.
Slippy. Even if it is quite warm there on the race day, generally when it gets to the evening here, it cools down quite quickly rather than some of the night tracks where it still can stay quite clammy and hot.
Yeah.
And I think based on that, I think you'll need a car that can be consistent over a long period. And we've seen that most cars, it seems, if they can get over one lap, then they can do that. But then over a race distance, if they, have a struggle or they're slipping and sliding, then those tyres just go out the door, and then it's really hard, right? Well, we've seen the Ferrari so far has been the best at kind of being comfortable on that.
Yep.
And I think there'll be less variables like Saudi. I imagine there'd be a bit of chaos, which is where Max will leap ahead, and lo and behold, that's kind of what happened. There was a bit of a shake-up. He got himself in the right position. I don't really see that here. I think although it'll be a tricky circuit, I don't see it to be too crash-heavy. So I'd put it more on the Charles side of the basket to win the race. I think just that consistency in all the variables, I just think that if he's pressuring Max, he's very likely to get him into a mistake or a position to take it, and then he's going to be cruising, they're going to have the strategy on their side.
Yeah.
So, don't know if that made any sense, but...
Let the viewers can decide. Did it make sense? I've also gone with Charles, so I've got Charles for both qualifying and the race, more or less echoing yours. They just seem to be, I feel like over that race distance, maybe, I mean, we even saw at Saudi, they maybe don't have that top end speed, but I don't think, even with these changes, I don't think it's going to be quite as reliant on that high end speed at Australia as it was at Saudi. So, and we go, if you look back at Bahrain, the Ferrari looked like, I feel like it was a lot closer, but the Ferrari kind of just looked like the better car overall at Bahrain. And I think Australia is probably closer to Bahrain than it is to Saudi in terms of how it's laid out. So, I think Charles will. He's already shown in the couple of battles he's had with Max that he knows how to fight for a championship. I feel like he knows how to. He knows how to play with Max a little bit. He knows what Max is going to do, and he knows how to counter that. It feels like so. Even if Max does come down and prove a challenge, I think Charles will be able to hold on. Unfortunately, I just don't see Carlos there or Perez just yet. I mean, they're both sort of there or thereabouts, but they're just sort of one step
they're
behind.
where they need to be, but unless you have some random event come up, which you could say for any session, then...
Yeah, that's it. So the Mercedes are bringing their first upgrade to Melbourne, though, so maybe they'll get a 1-2. But yeah, those are our predictions. Let us know either if you're watching on YouTube, leave them in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, then you can tweet at our Twitter, which we definitely use a lot. It's at Final Sector YT. Play along. It's a bit of fun. Like I said, it's a very good chance we'll get a cumulative score of about 8 by the end of the season. So you could. I'm looking forward to this race quite a lot. I said it's been 3 years since we've seen Australia. In past iterations, it has been kind of a bit boring, but you know, there's a little bit of bias being Australians. So
yes.
And the fact
that's why they made these changes, right?
I think 4 TRS zones are still too much, though. I think that might be a bit of a piss
I didn't even realize it was 4. That's okay.
Stay tuned for our race breakdown, which will be coming out obviously the sort of midweek after the race weekend. You're going to be hopefully recording some stuff at the weekend, so we'll either incorporate that as part of that video or it'll have its own video. Hopefully it'll be a bit of fun, so stay tuned for those ones. But enjoy the race, guys, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.
Catch ya.